Hello there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Inc. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of I Never Knew But My Dog Did podcast. I am Maureen Scanlon, your hostess and life coach Maureen, as you all know me most or best. I'm so excited, as I always am, that you are all here listening, and that once again, I'm presented with the most fantastic, beautiful guest ever. And she was so gracious that I was running late, and that's a pet peeve of mine. So she's so sweet, and she's so far away from me, and I love it. She is in Ontario, Canada, and so she grew up in a small farming community in Ontario, Canada, and living there today. So 8 brothers immigrated from Holland in the 1800s, and one of those brothers, Dan, was her great-grandfather. Her brother was named after him. She owns 2 pet supply stores. Woo! Yes, there it is, guys. You guys know I always look for the synchronicity, and there we are. She has a 26-year-old daughter named Marley, 3 cats. Yes, we love the cats. I have one. And she has 3 dogs. And she obtained a creative writing certificate from the University of Toronto in 2013. And she's written 2 books, and we're going to talk about those. She loves horseback riding, dirt biking, gardening, volleyball, and anything art. She enjoys acrylic painting and pencil sketching. And although she kept it a secret, writing is her one true passion. Welcome, my beautiful, beautiful guest. How are you, Angie?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to meet you. I love your energy. It's so awesome.
I feel the same about you. And I always say I could just tell by the big smiles of when someone's been through stuff, because as I said off air to her, our smiles are brighter and our souls are shinier because we've been given these experiences I believe we asked for, that we wanted to grow, we wanted to evolve. And the bigger the struggle, I think the more pure the soul is. So oh my goodness. So I always start off my I Never Knew podcast guests with your news story, and everyone comes back and says, oh, Maureen, there's been several of them. I know that. But what is really for you the moment? And you can go back to childhood, you can go to, loss or trauma, anything. What was your knee story that sort of started you on this journey?
Well, that one's very clear for me. I grew up with an older brother, Dan, as you mentioned in the intro there. He was always my pusher of things. He was, do this, Ange, do this. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And growing up, though, we fought a lot. And then as we aged, we became almost like twins. He was 3.5 years older than I am. So in 2012, well, actually probably 2011, he started to have some health issues, but nobody seemed to be able to pinpoint exactly what was going on with him. He was very anxious. He thought he was going to die, all of these things. And Dan was this huge presence. He'd light up a room when he'd walk in. He lived more than most people lived in a lifetime. I'd never seen him so distraught and so anxious and so inward, So we took him, he rushed into the hospital with a blood pressure of 266 over 144. They kept him there for quite a while. Excuse me. They checked on some of his situations in his body, like if there was a blockage somewhere, they couldn't find anything. So over that course of the year, he was pretty stressed. He couldn't work. He was having these visual episodes where he would, almost like an aura migraine. And I kept saying, well, you need to calm down, do some yoga, like have some deep breaths. You've always been this guy. You need to just kind of chill. And anyway, October 21st, 2012, I got a phone call from my mom. And she said, your brother didn't wake up. And I said, I'm sorry, what? Because he was staying with her a little bit because he was so scared. And I said, what do you mean he didn't wake up? She said, well, he's breathing, but we can't get him to wake up. So I said, oh God. And he was so over the top with everything, even this whole situation. So I said to her, well, for God's sake, like, what's going on? What is happening? She said, I don't know. And I said, we'll call the ambulance and I'll meet you at the hospital. So we waited all day long. And finally the doctor came out. And, he was on a ventilator and he was, and I just was like, wow, this is not at all what I expected. When the doctor came out, he told us that he was never going to wake up. And that was my knee moment. Sorry.
That's okay, honey.
Still,
that's okay. Oh my God.
I literally collapsed. I didn't know what to do. I was like, what do you mean? How is this happening? I can't believe that it's still this hard. Anyway, so then the discussion came up about organ donation, and I knew that he probably wouldn't want that, but it made sense of what was going on. So we said yes. So they sent him to Barrie, which is a town 40 minutes from here, because they didn't do it in my small town. So came to grips with it. He's gone. Well, as much as you could, right? 11 o'clock that night, I get a call from the doctor in Barrie. Sorry, we aren't able to do the organ donation because your brother still has brain activity. I'm like, what? We were told he's brain dead. So now I've got this like newfound, oh my God, is he coming back? Like, what's going on? So the next day we go down and the neurologists were waiting for him. Well, he didn't show up till 7 p.m. Busy, I guess. And he came in and he was more confusing than anyone. He's like, well, we did this test and we pushed on his sternum and his left arm raised, which showed us that he had, a reaction, but then we poured the liquid in his, like water in his eyes, no reaction, whatever they all do. So then finally the emerge doctor said, nothing's really changed. I mean, yes, he did respond to that, but he's still in the same position. The only thing that's functioning in his brain is pyramidal. And he's not, even if he was to wake up, it's a 1% chance, and he won't know who you are. He won't know who he is. He'll just be laying there like a vegetable. But, it's ultimately up to you guys for your decision of what you'd want to do. So his partner at the time, my brother was a gay man, not all his life, but just realized that he liked men more. Said, well, there's no point in holding on. Like, what are we doing? And I said, excuse me, Patrick, like, you have, he's your partner. You will get another partner. This is the only brother that I'm ever going to have. This is the only son my mom is ever going to have. We can't make this lightly. What's the point in rushing? Why don't we wait, see what happens tomorrow? If he comes back a little bit more, like, we need to let him make this decision. I can't make this decision. So the next day we go in and he had declined. He was no longer, reacting to anything. So we made the hard decision. And on the 24th, we let him go.
What a roller coaster. And the fact that you didn't have time to prepare. And I don't think we ever are prepared to lose loved ones, but I mean, just such a suddenly from a vibrant young man to not even knowing, did they ever give you a definitive diagnosis?
Yeah. So what had happened, we found out about 6 months later. So in the back of your neck, you have this vein or artery, I can't remember which, that goes, there's two of them that meet in a V, almost like a turkey wishing bone. You know what I mean?
Wishbone.
So in one of those, there was some plaque. And what was happening over that year was the plaque was breaking off. And that's what was causing the visual disturbances. There was only one, he'd even had MRI, or he didn't have an MRI, but he had CT scans and nobody found it. because he had collapsed at my stepsister's wedding as well. And she was a nurse of the Emerge. So she called ahead and said, every test you can possibly imagine, do. No one found it. And so what had happened in the end was that whole big chunk of plaque dislodged and blocked in where they meet. So didn't totally block enough to kill, but enough to damage.
Yeah.
So, and it was very interesting because that's what my first book is about, actually, is that journey, along with his first real gay relationship journey, actually. Because the two of them, I'd never seen anyone. I didn't know he was gay at the time, so I just thought they were good buddies. And this guy was devastated, completely devastated. His name is Brad, and he actually wrote, I didn't know what their first date was. I didn't even know how they met, really. So he would write little snippets, and then I would take from that and expand. So one half of the book is from his perspective and the other is from mine. So, yeah.
I just love that. I love that so much. Everyone knows my support of the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic that, like you said, he lived more life in his, how old was he when he passed?
48.
Wow. In his 48 years. And it's really neat for you to be able to like continue this legacy of him, and just the love that you have for him. I can see it. It just shines through, and that he left so much for us. And, I do not like that saying, well, everything happens for a reason. I just think we have things to accomplish. And I know sometimes when people pass suddenly, you think, no, that's not right. He didn't accomplish everything. He's got more to do. But I think our souls know when we're ready. And
I agree.
Bless his heart. I'm so happy he was here. I'm so happy that he was the brother that he was for you. A lot of us don't have that kind of brother-sister relationship. Exactly. And that you take that and do so much love in your writings. And I have full body chills right now. So I know, I know he's with us. I know he's with us. I am a medium. I'm a medium. So I usually know when we're talking about them and I get this whole full body thing, they're like, yeah, say more about me.
More about me. And that would be him.
I was just going to say, I didn't know him, but there we go. I didn't know him, but that's what I get him like being all excited, like, yeah, talk more about me. So, he had that shining personality where he just came here to live life to 100%. The fullest. And he didn't care. He was just like, I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm doing what I'm doing, and y'all can do whatever you want to do, but I'm having a good old time. So exactly. He crammed so much light and love into his 48 years. And he's definitely with us right now. So I know how devastating, and I take that back. I don't know how devastating. I never lived it, but hearing how devastating that was, I know there's more of your story of loss. And so tell us where it goes from there.
Well, it was funny because right after he passed, I remember backing into my garage and I could smell him with me, like he was right there. It was even before his celebration of life, which there was over 600 people at, by the way. It was ridiculous. But he had no idea that he had that effect on people, which made him so beautiful. Anyway, I started thinking about the book again, writing this book that I told no one about. And that sent me on this journey, of calling a medium to find out how Dan was. She mentioned this book that I wanted to write. I almost said, no, I don't want to write a book. I don't know what you're talking about. But I thought, no, I need to hear this, right? Well, in doing all of that, my dad was having a lot of health issues. So I was trying to focus on how to put one foot in front of the other without Dan. And then my dad got really sick. So he was having Parkinson's-like symptoms. He had so much pain. So I was trying to look after him. I was taking some appointments. He was getting some chelation appointments. He was trying whatever he could to feel better. And nothing was working. And he got so depressed that in 2014 in Collingwood, where the small town is that I grew up in, we have a waterfront with Georgian Bay, which is one of the largest bays off Lake Huron. And there's a pier there. So he couldn't swim. And in May, in our climate, it's very cold still in the water. And he jumped. So he took his own life. And I understood it because he was in so much pain, both with losing his son and both with, the pain in his body. Yeah. And it was a difficult thing because Dad wasn't in my world when I grew up, really. He and my mom separated when I was 2 weeks old because she found out about an affair that he was having. And he ended up ultimately marrying that woman, but always kind of wanted to be back with my mom. So there was like tragedy kind of already going on. Yeah. So because of his death and my brother's death, my mom's health started to decline after my dad lost his life. So for that, in 2014, she collapsed on her kitchen floor. They figured out that she only had 22% of her heart functioning, that at some point she'd had a massive heart attack. Of course, I think it's fairly obvious when that would have been, but she didn't even know. So over that year, her health declined to a point where I had to feed her, I had to change her diapers, I had to look after her. And then finally in 2015, she passed. And it's quite an interesting story. At that time, my dad's wife was also contesting his will. And so I was kind of trying to fight for his rights in that while I was helping my mom. And the whole time I'm watching my mom, I'm like, how is this fair? This woman was the most beautiful soul I've ever seen. And this other woman was a vulture, for lack of better words. And she gets off this so easy and whatever. So I was dealing with all of that. And so I said goodbye to my mom the night before she passed. And I said, now, Mom, I'm not going to be a little bit later tomorrow because I believe the subconscious mind is still there, even though her cognitive is gone. So I would talk to her as if she was still there. And I said to her, now, Mom, listen, I won't be here. I have a call with the lawyer at 10, because I was telling her all about that all the way through too. I said, so I'll come after the call. Well, at 10, the lawyer called me, and immediately after I just said hello, her boyfriend, Frank, was calling. And I'm like, what is he doing? He knows I have this call at 10. Like, why is he calling me? He was like that and frustrating sometimes. So then he obviously gave up and he called my ex-husband's phone. And all of a sudden, Craig was his name. He looks at me and his face goes blank. Right at 10 o'clock, my mom left this world.
My goodness. I
just
mean,
couldn't put me through anything else, right? She
right.
just didn't let me see that. So,
and I've heard that's pretty common. A lot of times,
yeah.
We sit by their bedside watching. Yeah. And I have a friend who went to take a shower. Her mom they brought her home, and
That's right.
She had cancer. She went to take a shower and came back because she was gone. And it's that last labor of love, that last way of saying, I can't do this to you. I can't let you see my last breath. And even though we're mad, we weren't there for it. It's still, when we look at it and say, oh my gosh, you did one last thing for me.
Yeah.
And this is a 3-year period that all of this happened. Oh my gosh, Angie, how was your mental health? Were you just going through the motions of the survival of taking care of every person? And then did you crash after and just sort of it would be normal to have a mental breakdown after that.
Right.
Yeah.
Really, right? Well, no, I didn't, because at the same time I was focusing on the first book. I was writing it, and it was really an odd situation because I was writing it based on the time that my brother had his problems, where my dad and mom were still alive. And as I was writing, I kept having to remember that, oh, right, they're still here in this book, like in this time frame. It and my workouts are really the only thing that saved me, I think. And I didn't really crash until I don't even know if I ever really crashed, to be honest. I started to feel more with my mom than anything. My brother, still, I couldn't look at photos of him for 4 years. I just couldn't. I couldn't even go there. And then eventually I started to get some energy treatments and things because I'd already been through therapy and that was just not working. Mediums, honestly, mediums helped me the most because I could hear from Dan. Dan sends me lots of symbols and signs all the time. My mom, she was a smoker. And all of a sudden I have this, like, there'll be cigarette smoke and I don't smoke. And I know it's her, right?
Yeah.
And she leaves me dimes. So that helps, when they leave me the signs, because I realize that this is just a shell that we're in. Energy really never dies. And they're still very much there and supporting me and around me. And that's really all that got me through.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm so happy that you say that there are a lot of people, that don't really believe in it. And I think it is really a personal experience. I can't tell you what a piece of chocolate cake tastes like until you've had a piece of chocolate
That's
cake.
right.
And as a medium myself, I know because the things that I get information on, I have no way of knowing. I didn't live an intimate life with anybody's loved one.
Right.
And I didn't even know and we all have the gift. It's just honing in on it. But
Exactly.
this wasn't even something that I even honed in on. I wrote my book and it was channeled in 8 weeks. I wrote my first book. And then as I was life coaching, like things were coming before I even met the client. And I'd say, well, hey, do you have this thing? And they just start bawling. And I go, I'm sorry. But it's a comfort knowing that they're there and we're connected. We are connected in every lifetime, in every way. Our souls are connected. We've chosen to be connected as these soul families in whatever capacity. I always say I feel like my middle daughter was my mother at one time.
My daughter was too.
I feel like we just we switch, we kind of leapfrog and we do whatever it takes to make each other better. And I love that you say that. And with your brother, for some reason, and this is going to sound silly, but what I kept getting was like a frog. So I don't know if there's something significant with a frog with your brother, but is there a story about a frog or something?
Yes.
What? Really? Oh, full body chills. Tell us. I don't know why he gave me a frog.
So he wanted me to tell you this story because it's very funny. So Dan was the type of guy that he loved drama and he loved to shock people. He never wanted to be a part of the drama. He just wanted to either create it or witness it or watch it, So in kindergarten, I was born, but I was just a small little baby. So I don't remember any of this. This is just coming from my mom. Dan decided that he would take, back then there was show and tell. So he decided that he would take double-decker frogs and show them at show and tell. He knew very well what was happening, but he called them double-decker frogs and he took them to school. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've never talked about it. We've never met before today. We did not talk off air about anything. The fact that your brother just gave me frog, I knew he was with us. Oh, I love him. I love you, Dan. You are my guy. Of course he did, because living life to the fullest, he's going to make people laugh, and he didn't like negative stuff. And he would turn a serious situation into a big fat joke. He'd make you laugh when you're not supposed to be laughing. And oh my God.
And the one thing that he did that I think I wrote about is through his joking and those kinds of things, he'd make you realize either your deepest fears or your potential. He'd push you to that point without even trying, because he would just poke at the bear. He'd poke it and he'd keep poking it and he'd keep poking it until you'd either blow up or go, oh my God, okay, he just made me face that, right?
Yeah. And he was like a teacher spirit. He was like, I'm not going to do it for you, but I'm going to show you something 100%. That you can do for yourself. But I'm just going to throw it out there. And he had no filter. He was very much like, I'm just going to say it, and whether you like it or not, I'm just going to do it. So, okay, listeners, there you go. There's your example. If you don't believe in mediums, I don't know what else to do to convince you, but that,
That
those
is
are
crazy.
things that freak me out too. Cause I'm like, I don't, and I say something and I look at people like, okay, I'm saying it. I've learned not to doubt it. And I know when I first started doing readings, I was like, well, maybe that's not. And I've learned just say what comes to mind, Maureen, and it's going to relate because I'm just the conduit. So he says something. And so it cracks me up when I'm like, something about frogs. Like, I don't know, and that's so fantastic. So much for validating him. He's loving he's loving what you're doing. He's loving that you continue to talk about him because he loves being he's not in a conceited way, not like I'm all that, but he loves that he's being talked about because he still gets to teach even though he's not physically here. And so again, full body chills, validation. I personally just am so enamored by you. Just losing one person in your family, and especially your best friend, who's your brother, who you're so close to, is so hard. And then to get it in such a short period of time. What I love that you said, and I, as a life coach, am always preaching this, and all my clients listening, this. I always say, this week, guys, here's your goals. What are you doing physically, and what are you doing mentally? What are you doing spiritually? And you said, doing my exercise and writing. Those two things were those outlets that just help you to process and to heal. And I think writing, to me, journaling, writing your story, as painful 100%. As it can be, it's cathartic, isn't it?
Oh, so much. And the medium that I spoke to was in that same town, Barry, and that told me about the book. And she said, I don't know what you write first, but there are two, which there are more than that sense. But in that realm, in that energy field at that time, there was two. And the first one, she said, I don't know what comes first, but it's whatever you need to write. And of course, Cry of an Osprey came first because I needed to get all of that out, all of the pain, all of the suffering, all of what I went through. And oddly, people said to me, wasn't it hard to write about what you went through in the hospital? I said, no, because I'd already gone through it. The hard part was writing about the relationship that he had with this man that he never stopped wanting back. And just as they started to come back together to each other, this happened. That was hard. That was because the sadness and the hurt that I felt for this poor man left behind. And the fact that my brother never knew how he truly felt before he died. That's what was the hardest.
And there's a really good lesson right there that we have to speak of how we feel. I mean, I think about how over the top I can be in other people's eyes, but like I've met you and I'm just like, you're so beautiful. You're so wonderful. I don't feel the need to hold back. No. And that's just because that's who I am. And your brother not getting that reciprocated and that man not being able to express that, he leaves this legacy of teaching us, just say it. Just say it. What does it hurt to say? I love you. I appreciate you. I understand you. I care about you. Even truthfulness of honesty, which a lot of people, hey, that hurt my feelings. Hey, I don't like to be treated that way. I don't know why we've all been programmed for so many years by our generational, of hold back. It doesn't get us anywhere.
Nowhere.
And bless you for that, for even seeing that insight. And what do you think you have gained as insight from your brother passing? What kind of messages has he really been, these epiphany moments that changed things for you?
Again, to live, to do what you just said, to always speak your truth and from the heart, and to be your goofy, silly self whenever you need to be. And who cares what people think about it? He also made me realize that I wasn't living my truth. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to be a writer. I my whole life, since I held a book in my hand, that's what I wanted to do. And in death, he still pushed me to do it. He still pushes me to do it because, I applied to these podcasts and I meet you and I feel like it's through him. And I'm so grateful for that because you're equally as beautiful. I mean, I can totally see your energy and your aura and your light and you're changing people. And Dan would have loved you with your spirit and your bubbliness and your vibrancy because he attracted people like that. And I guarantee you, he brought you to me. I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
I said that to you off air, listeners.
Yes.
I said to Angie, so how it happens is I have this wonderful lady named Jessica from podcastguest.com. And she just reaches out and says, hey, Maureen, we want to feature you in our newsletter, free, and everything else I pay for, marketing, whatever. And she's like, free. And she did it a year ago. And I got a list of 100 people that wanted to be on the podcast. So she reached out the other day or a couple weeks ago and said, hey, Maureen, we want to feature you again. So she did it again. And I got, again, like 100 people. And I'm like, I want to reply to all of them. But what I did was, and I told Angie, I went through all of the guests and I've done, like a first run reach out, like, I really want you on here. And I said to Angie, if you're in front of me, there was a reason that you were brought to me. And when someone doesn't show up to a podcast, it's something, there's a reason that it was misaligned and we're not supposed to. And I'm kind of a one and done. So if people don't show up, I have to pay attention intuitively to spirit saying, I don't think that's a good fit. Even though you reached out, Maureen, we still don't think it's a good fit. And I actually had that happen today.
Wow.
So yeah, incredibly. They're like, oh, something came up and can we reschedule? And I was like, yeah, no, I don't think so.
No.
So when you're here, it's as absolutely an honor for me that you're in front of me as it is for you to be able to come and share that story for Dan. And I do believe that there's so much we don't understand in the fifth dimension that we are moved to do and we don't know why, but who cares? I don't care why.
It doesn't matter why.
I don't care if technology, tweaks. I don't care if my dog barks. I don't care if someone's like, oh my God, she's a lot. Can she stop talking? I don't care. I know the authenticity and the being real is what matters in this life. And your brother just gave that to you so much in those 48 years. And he's giving that to me today. I have these continuous body chills. So tell us how this hour just like,
I know, flies by.
My God. Okay. So what I am going to do is I'm going to give I have a segment that I do because everything's kind of heavy on the podcast and I like to be lighter as we leave. So I do a little segment called, what can you do for me? And what that is some services that are provided by people. They've actually started businesses on these services. And there are some weird and wacky things. I'm going to give you an example today so I can give you time to think because I hate to put people on the spot. So I recently was in Vegas last week or the week before, and this one is Vegas related. In Vegas, you can go on, it's called hangoverheaven.com, and it is a bus that when you have a hangover, you go on the bus and you get IV hydration and vitamin shots, and it's guaranteed to make your hangover go away in 45 minutes so you can essentially start over, I guess, in Vegas. Yeah. It is Vegas. But this one really makes me happy. This one just touches my heart. And it's kind of related to your brother, but it's called Rent a Goldfish. And in the Happy Guest Hotel in Cheshire, England, you can rent a goldfish named Happy. So, when people travel a lot and they're lonely and you can't bring your puppies with you, you can rent a little goldfish named Happy. So, goldfish frog. There was a little tie-in. So cute. What do you have for me, Angie, that you used or you've seen or you think is just totally off the wall crazy service business that people have?
There's this device that I've just been introduced to called the Healy. I actually have it in my pocket right now. I'm running a program, but it works on frequencies. It has a quantum reader right built in. It's based off of Nikola Tesla's, a lot of his research and his findings.
Really?
I just got it 2 weeks ago. I've been getting treatments from it for a couple of years from my energy lady who's helped me a lot through all of everything I've been through. And I've got to tell you that this thing, I ended up buying one because it was just so incredibly cool. And it's funny because I said to the girl that I got it from, I said, is there a money back guarantee? And she said, yeah, after 2 weeks. And I said, okay. Well, Monday was the 2 weeks. And I said to her, you will have to pry it out of my dead hands. Yes.
So does it clear energies? What does it do frequency
Yeah,
wise?
it's pretty interesting. It reads your bioenergetic field. And there's programs that people have in the quantum physics world and in scalar wave world and all these different energy waves have developed. And so there's two apps. There's one that's called the blue app, and you put your finger on it and it reads your aura or reads your bioenergetic field. And it talks to what's out of balance, out of whack. And then it'll suggest a program that you run then for yourself. And literally I'll show you, it's like this little tiny gadget.
Oh, wow.
And this part that's inside is a Nikola Tesla coil. I don't know whether you can see that, but
yeah.
It's the most crazy little gadget I've ever seen in my life. I have no idea. I can't even explain to you how it works, but it does. There's a pain one. There's a soul one. I was actually running a coherence one on myself, so I didn't stumble over my words while I was talking.
It worked really well. Yeah. There's proof right there. Not once you stumbled. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I believe in that. I do. I believe that we can think outside of the box in these unconventional ways. I think medical care needs to be way more open-minded about other options besides, living through chemistry. I just don't think, I think it's antiquated. I think,
Me too.
And no offense to my therapists and counselors, but I think the old therapy and counseling modalities and the books telling you to stay within these certain things, that's antiquated. I think energetically, I think absolutely the mindfulness and the meditation and all of those things that are more in touch with the spirit of who we are and not just the physical, as people call it, the meat suit that we wear, right? So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So is it HEALY? Healy?
Yes.
Okay. Is it Healy.com?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Healy.com. Yeah. It's incredible. Now it is a one thing that I was worried about at the beginning is a multi-level marketing company. So I was like, oh, no, I don't want any part of that. But you don't even need to buy one to be a part of the business if you want to make it a business. I'm not interested in that. I wanted to start a sound healing business. So this will complement that. I'm not interested in selling them. I'm not interested in making that a business. And they don't care. I've not been pushed. I've not been pressured. What I've found so far is it's a family of love. They just want to raise the frequencies for everyone all over the world.
Love it. Love it.
That.
Just a bunch of light workers trying to find solutions. So speaking of light workers and solutions, I'm going to tie this somehow to our dogs because they are the best light workers on the planet.
I agree.
So as everyone knows, my dog is everything.net is my online pet store, and we do markets around Austin, and we've just been having a fantastic time. We make homemade treats. So guess what, guys? My beautiful Angie has a pet supply store as well. So tell me about your pet supply store. What do you sell? Tell me everything.
So back in 1974, a guy named Jeffrey Holt started this business called Pet Value without the E. So VALU. And it was this discounted pet food supply place. Well, over the years, it evolved. And in 1998, my dad knew a man that was selling it in that same town, Barrie, from here. 40 minutes from here, and it seemed like the perfect fit for me. So we bought it. And so basically it's a Canadian built franchising system. And we put cats that are at the humane societies, or furry friends, it's called, the place that we get them from, organizations that are trying to home homeless cats. We put them on display, but otherwise there's no selling of dogs or cats. It's just all food supplies, and we have holistic, we have raw, we have all of it. So for years, my daughter is 26 and it was 25 years that we bought it. So she was a year old, and we have got 2 locations. And I love it. I really love it. It's amazing.
Oh my gosh. It's so fun to do something that, you're so passionate about, and where your heart is. I never thought I would want to do the product side of it, but
Yep.
oh, I love it so much. I love doing service. I love doing my life coaching and the podcast, but it's kind of cool that I got to explore. And I old dog, new tricks. I'm like, I'm not really good at running a business, but man, it runs itself. I mean, hello, it's dogs. So
yeah.
if I can write about dogs and talk about dogs, I better, do something for them. And
good for you.
Oh my God. Yeah, we should collaborate.
I know we should.
We make this fantastic holistic paw balm and shampoo bars that's, hypoallergenic. It keeps the fleas and the ticks away. And it's got, shea butter and lavender, and it smells good. It's calming. And it's nice because it's just a shampoo bar that you don't have to worry about bottles and pouring. It's just, rub it on your babies. And
great.
So my heart is with you because you do that too. So Pet Value, and we have a lot of Canadian listeners. So Canadian listeners, Pet Value, is there a website for them to go to order stuff for that?
Yep, they can. Yeah, there's a website. There's locations all over the place. And I know some people get all bent out of shape. They're like, oh, well, I want to go to your location. It doesn't matter. Just as long as it's that and not anywhere else, you're supporting me through supporting another franchisee, right? So, it's been a great location. I mean, they're thriving, they're doing well. So, and we have to take a lot of courses, beforehand to train and to give the right advice to people and their animals. So our staff are well knowledged, they have a lot behind them. So
I love it.
Now we didn't ever get to the second book, but that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to market it when we want to leave them like wanting more. So we want them to go and seek out both books. So guys, on Amazon, the first book is Cry of an Osprey, and the second book is Hidden in the Shadows. And they're both fiction, right?
They are. The first one's sort of a semi-autobiography, but the second one is based off of that same medium actually told me. I was itching to write now, right? Because I've opened up this Pandora's box. And that same medium that told me about the book said to get this, that there was a sheriff in a small town. And I knew immediately because my mom's dad was a police chief. And he had this photograph of a woman standing next to a tiny box. And when I asked him about it, he said, I don't want to talk about it. And he stormed out of the room. So I never knew what happened. The day that he, passed, my Nana and I were going through photos, and I found it again. And I said, Nana, what's up with this photo? And she said, I'm not sure. She said, your grandfather never wanted to talk about it. And I said, no, I know. But she said it was his first case. And the tiny box, obviously, I recognize now as a coffin. So it was one of those things that took me down this really dark rabbit hole of child trafficking and satanic rituals. And I listened to tons of survivors, and it broke my heart because a lot of the comments were, this didn't happen to you, you're delusional, da, da, da. And I knew then that I needed to give them a voice. So it's not an easy book to read. It's you have to be a little bit brave. And I thank everyone for that, because the killer sections are very difficult, but imagine going through it. Imagine, right?
Yeah. And it did happen, and we can't close our eyes to it.
Exactly.
I'm very much a true crime follower. So for me, I agree, these horrific things happen, but they did happen. And I think the families and the victims all deserve people to talk about it. It's like, if I have cancer and cancer scares you, you're not going to not talk about me dying from cancer. You love me and you want to memorialize and share that so we can help others. So, which in my eyes, the podcast is sort of that same thing. Like, let's expose it, right? Let's talk about these painful things that happen in life, but then let's have hope. Let's help each other. Let's be a resource. I think for me now, when I first started it was just helping my guests share their story and their vulnerability and be comfortable and talking about mental health and saying it's all okay. And now I think I've really evolved to, I want resources for people.
Yes.
Because I didn't have that back when I was in a domestic violence situation. I didn't tell anybody. I mean, I did not say a word. And back in the 80s and 90s, you didn't really have internet groups where you could go on and get help, or it's nothing like it is today. So for me, being the voice that my younger self needed, and now also being the resource that my younger self needed, is vital to me. Because if they reach out to you, they've lost a loved one, you're going to respond, because all of my guests are so empathetic and loving and have been there, done that you're just going to come back with something encouraging and say, hey, get a support group. Here's a group that I know. So that's why it's a community now. It's not just a podcast that you're just going to sit here for an hour and entertain yourself. No, we're a community of people put on this earth to help one another. And
we agree.
I just thank you for this hour of your life that you've gifted to me. I don't take that lightly. And the honor of getting to meet you face to face, because I would never, our Texas and Canadian paths probably would never have crossed. So
no, exactly.
I'm grateful to your brother for coming through today and giving me his frog story.
Of course it would be that one, Dan, of course. Out of all of them.
He knows me, and he knows that I'm that person that would appreciate that story more than anyone, I think. So he's very in tune with who you're speaking with. But thank you so much, my love. Is there anywhere that someone can reach out to you? Is there a website that people can reach out and
yes, absolutely. So the first book is under my name, and the website is under my name, angievancise.com. They can reach me there. Or the second book I've done is AD Vancise, and the website for that is advanciseauthor.com. And there's contact, they can contact me through either one.
Perfect. I got them down. They'll be in the show notes. Thank you so much, my love, my beautiful new friend. Thank you for being here. Listeners, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing the podcast and for all of the 5-star reviews that we have. And again, invite your friends, your family, and reach out if you have anything that my guests say or talk about that you need connecting with them. I can connect you with all of them. As you know, I am here for life coaching, relationship coaching, dating coaching, confidence coaching, trauma healing, all that. And I now recently, just yesterday, finished my certification in coaching for autistic and neurodivergent clients. So hello, it takes one to know one. So I'm there for you. I'm there. And then my books, My Dog is More Enlightened Than I Am, and My Dog is My Relationship Coach, both available on Amazon. And my Canadian friends, Pet Value, to go get your doggy treats. My American friends at mydogiseverything.net, we have all the fun, healthy treats and safety products and gifts, all that good stuff. So thank you all for being here, and big hugs, big air hug, virtual hug. And we'll see you all on our next episode next week. Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the I Never Knew podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and educational, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and spread the word. The more people that join the Inc. community, the more it can develop and influence others as we work together for a healthier and brighter future. Until next time.